good?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can the camera hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so morning Soco family. We are stood here in Leicester Square and we are, as you can see, doing some evangelistic outreach. What we're doing essentially is we are seeking to engage people at street level in conversation, as you can see already. And I think that the church needs to be doing this kind of evangelism because our current evangelism is not particularly coordinated and not particularly well organised. It seems to fall into two kind of camps. You've got the alpha course, the thing that happens at church. We're running a course at church, we try to bring people to our church. Or we have people who go out and we do street preaching. And I think that the church needs to adopt the method that is working for other groups. The Muslim community has evangelistic tables like this set up in nearly every town in England, and it's working. They then do lots of follow-up, they take people to the mosque, and obviously they treat them as honoured and special guests. Christians, by comparison, don't have any street presence. The Jehovah's Witness movement have got swapped from going door to door and have moved now to just standing outside of train stations with their magazine, and the uptake has increased dramatically of their Watchtower magazine. What I would suggest, what I want to do is to lay down a challenge to everyone who's watching this who calls themselves a Christian, that you organise yourself with groups of other Christians, that you study apologetics and polemics, and then you do what we've done. You buy yourself literature, you buy yourself a table, and then you go out onto the street and you meet with people and you talk with them in honest conversation. And then with the people that you've met and that you've spoke with, you do follow-up. You meet with them a coffee the week after. You take them to your church, and that your church is prepared to welcome guests. It's prepared to welcome guests and to love bomb them. Now, just to give you a basic understanding of how this worked, everything that you see here has been bought by the people that are doing the evangelistic outreach. They're a group of people that I have taught apologetics to for a year and a half. And what has grown out of that apologetics class is a group of people that want to do evangelism. And we've bought a table, we've bought a sign. This is actually a sign from a previous evangelistic table that I used. We've bought our own literature. We've even bought a loudspeaker through which we can play Christian music or have the Bible being read or Christian sermons or other kind of music that will just draw attention to the fact that there's a table here. And what I would suggest to you is you don't try to talk with every single person that walks past you. You wait to see until you spot people who are showing an interest in what you're doing. They'll give it away, they'll be staring at the table. And then you greet them, you say hello. You ask them a quick first question like, what do you know about Christianity? Or how are you today? Or in this case, because we're in Leicester Square, and a lot of people are tourists, we'd say something like, how are you enjoying your holiday? Or how are you enjoying London? You'll get different kinds of responses, but have a quick comeback, because usually people are reticent about coming in and talking to you. So you've got to have another sort of follow-up question to draw them in. So if you say to someone, what do you know about Christianity? And they go, I know enough. Your sort of comeback would be something along the lines of, well, tell me what you know. The whole point being is that you're trying to draw them into a conversation. Then when you get the conversation going, the imperative is upon you to get that conversation going. So have a few minutes worth of presentation, 2-3 minutes worth of a straight out presentation that you could make to an atheist off the cuff, that you could make to a Muslim off the cuff, that you could make to a Jew off the cuff, that you could make to a communist off the cuff, that you could make to an atheist off the cuff. And the reason for that is that if they don't want to stay, at least they've heard something worth listening to. So a quick 2-minute presentation. And at the end of that presentation, ask an open question like, how do you feel about that? Or what do you think about that? So that, again, you're engaging them in conversation. Introduce yourself, shake their hand. You know, do all the normal niceties that you would. Don't become one of these cheesy Christians that's gushing in Christian ooey love, gooey love. That's so off-putting. Be real, be straightforward, be direct. You've got to have a presence about you. If you're a shrinking violet, no one will want to come and talk to you. So you've got to have a sense of what you're about, a sense of why you're there, a sense of purpose. The other thing that I would suggest to you is that you've got to make sure that you are engaging, that you have some energy about you. You know, look, if you're stood there and you're all dull and you're not smiling and you look bored, everyone's going to be bored of you. You know, you've got to be able to engage people in conversation with some energy. So be able to present yourself well, dress smartly, make sure that you've done the niceties, that you look pleasant. You know, and then obviously it's about making sure that you are able to engage with what the person is saying after you've delivered that initial script, that you're able to take on board what the person is saying and you take it forward, and that you can then maybe exchange numbers, that you can then agree to meet up with them for a coffee. So this team that's assembling today is going to be here, weather permitting, which of course it might not be today, but weather permitting, we're going to be here from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the evening. That's a full day's worth of evangelism, and you will get to speak to people doing that. You're going to find that there's 3 types of people that will come and talk to you. The lost and the lonely, the broken and the injured. These kinds of people, whilst obviously you know your compassion might go out to them, this kind of evangelism is not aimed at that kind of person. So give them a few words of comfort, a bit of human solidarity, but don't allow them to take up your time too much, because you know they need other kinds of help. Maybe have something you could signpost them onto, or groups that you could put them in touch with. The other kind of group that you're going to get that's going to come to the table, and as you can see it's quite noisy. How are we doing, Raoul? Can you still hear me? Am I still coming through loud and clear? Let's just wait for this lorry to come through. The other kind of people that you're going to get come and talk to you are ideologues. Now these are people that have come to tell you why you're wrong, and they know all the answers. But these are still great people to engage with, because the fact is they are concerned about these kinds of questions. So if you engage with them, it is worth doing, and you might find that something comes out of that. And then the final group of people that you're going to get are the genuine seekers. Now these are people who are genuinely interested in what you're doing and genuinely interested in what you're standing for, and that's the third group that you should be most alert to. Now, some of the pitfalls and dangers of doing this kind of thing is you've got to think about your geography. So if you set up a table like this, but then there's a lorry that's creating a kind of well, a space that people are having to walk round, then people are going to end up walking around your table. The ideal sort of place that you can get, and maybe Raoul can just pan this out for us, is within a sort of narrow band section where there's a flow of traffic and you're facing that flow of traffic, but it's narrow enough that I could call out to someone who's on the edge of the street near the big smoke sign and invite them to come and talk to me, and they still would. So think about your natural geography, about where you're setting up your table. There's no point setting up in some back street. Go and set your table up in the main high street of your city, of your town, of your village, and do it in the narrowest part of the way. You need to consider things like weather. Now we're just starting this here in London, in Leicester Square, so we haven't got yet protective covers to put over the top of all our literature, but that's also something you might want to consider, especially during winter. Pay for your own sign. This is going to have to come out of your pocket, so people are going to have to be conscious of that they've got to be committed to it. And finally, don't be disheartened. Sometimes you'll do a tabletop evangelism and you will speak to 20, 30 people. I've done that myself. Sometimes you set up this kind of tabletop evangelism. Maybe hold on a minute. Don't be disheartened. Sometimes you'll set up tabletop evangelism and you'll speak to 60 odd people. Sometimes you'll set up a tabletop evangelism and you'll only speak to 2 people. But if those are the 2 people that God needed you to speak to, then it's worth doing. So whether it's 20 or 2, don't be discouraged. Yeah? The other factors you got to consider is, we've got some quite loud background music going on. So that means that what we'll be doing after I've finished making this presentation is we're going to move the table a bit further away from the loudspeaker. So these are all the kinds of things that you've got to consider. And I just want to lay down this challenge to all of you that watch this. Currently, too much of the evangelism that is being done by Christians is being done by the eccentrics and those people that are emotionally disturbed, who are going onto the street corners and they're screaming and shouting at people. They think they're making a difference, but really the only thing that they're affecting is their own emotional self. There's very few good street preachers. They do exist, David Lynn would be an example, but there's not many. We Christians have got to get the sensible, intelligent, professional people out onto the street, the people that can hold a conversation with someone, and this is a great way to do it. And I would lay down a challenge that if the Muslim community can have evangelistic tables in every city and town in England, then why can't the church? God knows we've got enough paid professionals. There are enough people who are making their bread and butter payment out of the church. Why aren't they doing this kind of evangelism? God knows that we've got enough monastics, enough people who have committed to the religious life, enough missionaries. Why are we not doing this kind of evangelism? There is no reason why the Christian community cannot have a presence on every high street, in every village, in every town, in every city, in every major city like London, across the whole of the United Kingdom. It is simply a lack of will, a lack of imagination, and a lack of commitment. And I want you who are watching this video to share this with your pastors, to share this with your bishops, to share this with your priests, to share this with your elders, and to lay the challenge before them that they should have a public street ministry like this one in the middle of wherever you live, that is happening every single week. And what you will find is that there is a lot of goodwill. Other Christians will come and support you. And if you find that your church is not willing, then find a coalition of the willing. Find a group of Christians who are willing to learn apologetics, learn polemics, who are willing to commit their money and commit their time to do exactly what you're seeing here today. That's the challenge that I lay before you, church. As you can see, I'm not being lazy just because I'm not at the corner. But the thing is, we as Christians have got to start thinking imaginatively and intelligently about how we're doing evangelism, taking it out of the hands of the eccentrics and giving it into the hands of the more professional, the more grounded people within our community, so that people who do not even know these days that the cross is a Christian symbol, who do not even know that the cross is a Christian symbol, are encountering Christians on the high street. Anyway, God bless.